My name is Barney Rosenberg. I'm your senior judge this morning. And in this part of the competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity and similarly assigning a fictional business identity to the judges. So please make sure everybody knows who you are, your names, not your schools, but the organization that you've created to deal with these issues. You'll have 25 minutes to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem and to recommend solutions or a solution that passes muster on all three counts. During this time, we will not interrupt you. When you're finished, the judges will spend the next 10 or 15 minutes in character asking you questions. And when that's done, we'll take a deep breath and we'll give you some feedback. So team, other judges, are you online?
Sure. My name is Annalia Hibbard. I'm the founder of a small architectural firm in Orange County that focuses on remodels and accessory dwelling units.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Allen. I work at Beyond Meat and really excited, but also used to work in fashion in sustainability. So really excited to hear from you all today.
So team, whenever you're ready, you can get started.
So our initiative today represents innovative, ambitious rethinking of how a global fashion leader like H&M can spearhead efforts towards sustainability. Central to our vision is a commitment to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 12, responsible consumption and production. My name is Gloria Bebe, and today I'm here with Greenovater Solutions Consulting. I will now give a chance for the rest of my team members to introduce themselves.
My name is Soraya Soror, and I'm also part of Greenovater Solutions Consulting.
Hi, my name is Sinji Kang. I'm also part of the Greenovater Solutions Consulting.
And I'm Ellie Wilmer, and I'm also a part of the Greenovater Solutions Consulting.
Our current situation that we are focusing on is that H&M is considered to be one of the most prevalent fast fashion brands today, but they're also seen as the biggest contributor to pollution. Their harmful practices have been recently called out due to all the detrimental effects it has been having on the environment and the various societies. Statistics that support this point are that since 2019, H&M has had an average of $4 billion worth of unsold clothing go to waste, as well as around 3 million pieces of clothing are produced by them by a year, and more than a third of it goes unsold. And the detrimental effects it has with all this unsold clothing is that this clothing is made with cheap toxic textile dyes, and it is often thrown in different communities which the environmental laws are not as strong in the US or other European countries.
Our main question is, how can H&M use AI and sustainable practice to reduce textile waste and overproduction?
The urgency of this transformation lies in three interlocking challenges. First, excessive waste generation caused by overproduction burdens the environment with unsold garments. Second, the environmental impact on communities, particularly in the global south, is severe. Discarded textiles overwhelm ecosystems and threaten public health. Third, H&M suffers immense financial losses, as mentioned, with $4.3 billion in unsold inventory, tying up capital and draining resources. These are not isolated issues. They are systems of broken systems that can no longer be ignored. Our strategy directly addresses each of these issues, offering a path forward that is both economically viable and environmentally sound. The figures we face are troubling. H&M currently finds itself with an outstanding $4.3 billion worth of unsold inventory, as mentioned. This surplus stands as a financial burden and a significant environmental concern. The fast fashion model, with its relentless drive for quick turnover, inevitably leads to mass production and an overflow of stock. Though H&M has made the commitments to sustainability, their challenges in inventory management have resulted in vast amounts of clothing that are either discarded or discarded or end up in landfills in Ghana, Kenya, and Uganda. Unfortunately, much of this secondhand clothing, rather than being resold or creatively repurposed, often ends up as waste, putting immense strain on local ecosystem and economies. And the path forward is clear. We must harness technology to enhance demand forecasting, curb overproduction, and embrace a circular economy that values durability over disposability. The repercussions of the waste crisis reach far beyond the confines of the corporate finances. In Africa, where much of the unsold inventory finds its way, local textiles are bearing the brunt of an influx in inexpensive, subpar imports. Each week, millions of garments flood the markets, yet a large portion remains utterly unresellable. These abundant textiles pile up in landfills, contaminate water sources, and intensify environmental challenges that regions already grappling with climate change face. H&M is confronted with a dual challenge. Not only must it curb financial losses, but it must also reshape the contribution to global sustainability initiatives. Through thoughtful reform, we can tackle this issue of waste, safeguard local economies, and pave the way for a future where fashion is both lucrative and ethically responsible.
Thanks, Gloria. To dive deeper into the ethical impact of overproduction, let's take a look at Ghana, specifically the Continental Market in Accra. Every week, around 15 million garments arrive here through secondhand shipments. However, only 40% of them are unsellable and quickly become waste. With limited infrastructure, this waste is either burned or dumped into landfills, which contributes to serious pollution and long-term environmental damage. It also impacts local traders who purchase these bales of clothing, hoping to sell them for a profit. When the garments are of low quality or completely unusable, it leads to financial losses, which hurt the local economy. This scenario shows that overproduction in the global north has a far-reaching consequence, where waste is often offloaded onto countries like Ghana, creating an ethical dilemma. In Kenya, we see another example of ethical costs tied to this overproduction. The Dandora dump site in Nairobi is one of the largest landfills in Africa and receives a huge amount of textile waste, much of it from secondhand clothing. All these clothes decompose. They release toxic chemicals and pollute the air, water, and soil, directly impacting nearby communities. Unfortunately, many people, particularly children and marginalized groups, are left to deal with the waste, relying on informal waste picking to survive. These people face unsafe and unhealthy working conditions, often with no choice but to work in these dangerous environments. This shows how the effects of overproduction is not just environmental, but social and economic as well. Next, let's look at Uganda, where the Owino market plays a central role in the secondhand clothing community. While the market provides affordable clothing, it also limits the growth of Uganda's domestic textile industry. Imported cheap garments flood the market, making it difficult for local manufacturers to compete. This dependency on secondhand goods is a direct result of overproduction in other parts of the world. Local industries cannot thrive when they're overshadowed by imports, and textile waste continues to rise without a clear path to sustainable disposal or recycling. When we look at Ghana, Kenya, and Uganda together, ethical implications of overproduction become impossible to ignore. Overproduction leads to waste that harms both people and the environment, stifles local industries and economies while pushing the burden of waste onto countries that are least equipped to deal with it. That's why we think we need to rethink the way the fashion industry works globally. We need to reduce overproduction at the source. We need to support local industries instead of drowning them with cheap imports. And we need policies to hold brands accountable for the environmental and social consequences in their actions. Ethical cost of overproduction is too high. It's time for change. Now let's turn. Oh. Thank you.
To answer the question, how can H&M use AI and sustainable practice to reduce textile waste and overproduction? Our team suggests using a smart tool called HureTech. HureTech is a fashion technology company based in Paris. They help brands like H&M predict fashion trends using AI by analyzing millions of social media images every day. Also, they help brands produce smarter and more sustainability. The AI can spot popular colors, styles, fabrics, and shapes, giving fashion brands a clear idea of what people actually want to wear. This helps brands see what real people are wearing and what they like. As a result, companies like H&M can design better collection and avoid making too many clothes. This not only saves money but also helps the environment by reducing waste. Many famous brands like Dior and Louis Vuitton are already using tech. For example, Dior had a design idea. They thought green jackets might be a future trend. Before making a big decision, they used Heuristics AI to check if people were already sharing green jackets on Instagram. When the data confirmed the trend, Deere felt more confident and included it in their collection. This helped them make smarter, data-based design choices instead of just guessing. Louis Vuitton used Heuritech to learn how real people wear their products. By analyzing social media photos, they saw how customers mix and match their clothes in everyday life. This helped the brand understand their audience better and create marketing that felt more personal and real. In short, Heuristics helps fashion brands like H&M use AI to follow trends, reduce overproduction, and support sustainable fashion.
In order to use Heuristics to the full its potential and to make sure that H&M is on the track to success, we require a multi-step implementation. The first step being an AI demand forecasting. The second step is an on-demand production style. The third one being optimizing their inventory, and lastly, focusing on long-term sustainability. To get more into the first step, we utilize social media trend analysis, in which they are able to analyze millions of videos and photos posted every day on different social media platforms to detect emerging trends. Then we would also use the AI's predictive analytics, where they are able to forecast the lifespan and demand of trends, helping H&M determine which styles and fabrics will sell the best. And lastly, the regional demand mapping, in which they're able to predict demand by location, allowing H&M to avoid overstocking stores in regions where specific trends won't perform well. In order to implement this, we will train the AI using H&M's historical sales data and also set up Heuristics to scan daily social media data and identify high potential selling trends. Secondly, we will use AI to adjust production quantities and this will allow H&M to eliminate overproduction by only producing what AI predicts it'll sell, as well as reducing the number of seasonal collections and shifting more to data-driven capsule collections. The third step into implementing this is by limiting the production to high demand regions, where we are reducing shipments to stores in regions where certain trends aren't popular or where we are seeing slow moving inventory, and then using that AI to determine which trends should be stocked in specific markets and specific regions. The second step, our on-demand production model. The components of the AI that we will be using is the AI will forecast short-term demand, allowing H&M to produce in smaller batches and then dynamic restocking. So instead of mass producing upfront, H&M can produce smaller quantities first and then restock only the items that are selling well. The implementation plan for this is in order to move towards smaller and more frequent production runs, where we would run pilot tests on select product lines to produce in small batches first before committing to a full-scale production, and then adopting a pre-order and customization model where we would introduce limited edition pre-order collections where customers reserve the items before they're produced. Our third step, optimizing inventory, we would use the AI to identify slow-moving inventory early and suggest pricing adjustments or alternative strategies, aka donation and recycling, in order to produce less clothing that would be wasted and also become more sustainable. And as well, we would use predictive markdowns, where this AI is actually able to give us suggest pricing dynamically to sell items before they become dead stock, or to see which ones are slow moving items and how much we would need to reduce the price in order to make sure that they are sold. In order to implement this, we would use AI to detect slow-moving stock and set up Heuristics to flag underperforming products in real time, and then automatically adjust that pricing or offer targeted promotions before that items officially become excess stock, as well as expanding our resale and recycling programs, where H&M currently has an H&M pre-loved program where they are able to sell their excess clothing or they're not as popular clothing on a resale platform for a much cheaper price. And we would redirect that slow selling stock to that website or donate it to various textile recycling programs. And lastly, our fourth step, we focus on long-term sustainability, where AI will detect longer-lasting trends, allowing H&M to focus on timeless, durable designs instead of just the durable, fast fashion that they are currently focusing on with the cheaper materials that we have talked about. In order to implement this, we would produce more sustainable and timeless pieces using AI to identify evergreen trends instead of short-lived fashion cycles, see which ones are classics in everyone's closet and which trends continue to come back year and year again, rather than just which trends are popular on social media right now and will go away within a span of a few weeks. And in order to make sure that we stay sustainable, we would monitor AI success metrics and adjust strategies. So we would track how AI-driven productions affect sales, waste reduction, and inventory efficiency. And then the AI is able to adjust production processes based on its feedback and performance data.
Now let's turn on to the legal concerns with AI and trend forecasting. Heretics AI pulls images from platforms like Instagram, but if users haven't given explicit content for the data to be used, this could violate privacy laws like the GDPR and CCPA, which risks potential lawsuits or even bans. To avoid this, Heretech ensures that they have permission from platforms and use anonymized data and to stay in compliance with privacy regulations. As for labor and supply chain transparency, laws like the EU Corporate Sustainability and Due Diligence Directive and the California's SB 62 require companies to ensure fair wages and safe working conditions throughout their supply chains. If AI-driven production accelerates too quickly, it could lead to labor exploitation risks. To stay compliant with this, H&M must align AI forecasting with ethical sourcing policies and conduct regular audits to ensure fair practices in the supply chain. In summary, privacy violations and labor risks could expose H&M to serious legal consequences. However, by focusing on compliance and with regulation, H&M can mitigate legal risks and ensure they remain aligned with ethical business standards.
Now, looking at the financial analysis, Heretech is currently having an annual fee of $35,000 a year, and there are add-on costs depending on which components we are specifically using for H&M. Those are predicted to be around $100,000 to $400,000 a year, as well as IT infrastructure and staff training. In order to train the staff, it'll cost $50,000 to $100,000 within the first year, and lessen depending on how much more training we need in the coming years. Our total estimated initial investment is $250,000 to $500,000 yearly. Now, while that is not a small sum of money, we do realize that's not a small sum of money, we do think it is worthwhile considering all the money that H&M will be saving. Since Heretech can demand more accurately and lead to fewer unsold items and lower markdowns, it will result in a 10 to 30% reduction in excess production and could save H&M over $100 million per year. And this is also due to the lower storage and logistic costs that it'll use, where we have lower storage costs because we're using our more distribution more efficiently and selling more products than we need. And lastly, it's due to higher profit margins, where producing what is only needed allows H&M to sell more at full price rather than leading what they're currently doing, where they're having to mark down a lot of their dead stock to make sure that they are selling all of it. And that'll increase the profit margins by at least 5 to 10%.
Now let's look at the ethical challenges H&M might face when using AI like Heretech. Heretech's AI is mainly trained on images from social media influencers, but these influencers often don't represent all types of consumers, especially people from underrepresented or non-Western backgrounds. As a result, the AI might focus too much on Euro-centric beauty standards and Western fashion trends, ignoring local or traditional styles. This could make fashion less inclusive and more exclusive. To fix this, AI models should be trained using more diverse fashion sources, and their productions should be checked for bias regularly. If brands like H&M rely too heavily on AI to decide what's trending, the lure of human designers might shrink. Designers may feel that their creativity isn't valued, which can hurt more. Also, if everyone follows the same AI trends, fashion could become repetitive and boring. The solution is to use AI as a support tool, not a replacement. Let designers interpret AI results creatively, keeping innovation and originality alive. Sometimes AI might suggest materials or production methods that are trendy but not eco-friendly. If H&M follows these suggestions without careful review, it could lead to more waste and unethical production. And if the company talks about sustainability but doesn't improve, they could be accused of greenwashing. To prevent this, H&M should use AI not just for trend forecasting, but also for tracking materials and ethical impacts, making sure style and sustainability go together.
So now we'll have a look at our 3-year target plan. I think it is important to highlight that in this section, holding cost within the fashion industry equates to 20% of the inventory's total value. So firstly, in year 1, we have titled it Implementation and Initial Impact. In our first year, we'll kick off our strategy by integrating the HeroTech's AI-driven demand forecasting to enhance inventory planning and tackle overproduction. By harnessing the power of AI, H&M can fine-tune its production process, leading to fewer unsold garments ending up in their inventory. So reducing unsold inventory by 10% equates to eliminating approximately $430 million in excess stock from our overall inventory of $4.3 billion. Given that holding onto unsold inventory racks up an annual cost of 20%, this reduction translates to a significant saving of $86 million. By the end of year 1, H&M expects to see its unsold inventory decrease to 3.87 billion from the 4.3 billion, with annual holding costs falling to $774 million. Year 2 is titled Scaling and Optimization. After the promising results of year 1, we will scale our efforts by introducing sustainable production models such as on-demand manufacturing and expanding our resale initiatives. This innovative approach will enable H&M to further minimize inventory levels and mitigate financial losses, which aims for a 15% reduction based on the new inventory level of $3.87 billion. We anticipate an additional $580.5 million decrease in unsold stock. This shift will yield further savings from $116.1 million in holding costs, which is 20% of the $580.5 million. By the conclusion of year 2, our remaining unsold inventory is projected to be around $3.29 billion, while our annual holding costs will decrease to $657.9 million. Year 3 is sustainability and leadership. In this year, we'll fully embed AI forecasting alongside sustainable production practices, pushing H&M towards a remarkable cumulative 30% reduction in unsold inventory. Over the span of these 3 years, we'll have successfully cut unsold inventory by $1.29 billion, bringing our excess stock down to $3.1 billion, and the total savings in holding costs due to this reduction will amount to $258 million, representing 20% of the total decrease. At this point, H&M not only diminishes financial losses, but also solidifies its position as a leader in sustainability within the fashion industry. The moment for transformation is upon us. H&M finds itself upon a pivotal juncture to persist down the path of excess production and environmental degradation, or to wholeheartedly adopt innovation and sustainability as guiding principles for the future of fashion. By harnessing the power of AI-driven demand forecasting, embracing responsible production practices, and diligently working to minimize waste, H&M has the opportunity to redefine the benchmarks of the fashion industry. This proactive approach transcends mere financial enhancement, but it embodies a commitment to safeguarding our ecosystems, uplifting local economies, and establishing a new paradigm for global fashion. In undertaking this approach, we are not merely addressing a crisis. We are architecting sustainable and prosperous future for fashion industry. And by embracing this transformative shift, H&M stands ready to tackle the most pressing challenges of fast fashion, demonstrating that true success can be measured not solely by profit, but by visionary responsible leadership. On behalf of my team and I, thank you for taking the time to be with us here today, and we'll now open up to any questions that you may have. Thank you.
I was saying that a lot of work obviously went into your presentation, and I want to thank you for the thoroughness. But as a member of the executive board at H&M, I'm a little bit concerned that you continue to refer to our company as being a member of the fashion industry, when it sounded to me like what you're suggesting is that we only make clothing that people already have in their closets, in effect replacing what they already have, rather than being fashion leaders. So how do I resolve that in my own mind?
Currently, H&M while we do say that they are fashion leaders, it is more so that they are the first ones joining the trends, but that is not to say that other companies like Zara and Forever 21 are following those same trends. Now, in order to solve this, we are moving towards more classic styles rather than the fast trends that they're currently following. So we know we are looking at the trends that are continuously coming back, or the trends that we are seeing in everyone's closet, so that we can make sure that it is maximizing the potential of production as well as maximizing the potential of our environmental sustainability efforts.
I guess I was looking at the solutions that you guys presented, and I was wondering if you had looked at whether the manufacturer and the supply chain can keep up with the changes. It seems when we look at social media, things are constantly changing. And if in some way we are following the trends, then can we keep up with the manufacturing and the supply chain and make those changes as they come?
Going again, that is where the AI actually falls into place, and that is where the pre-order style comes in, and we have those pilot test runs. Rather than making one big change, it is more small iterative changes. H&M. So we are slowly using the AI to see smaller trends that are currently showing up, and then adding those and seeing those trends in our production styles.
I have a question. You mentioned that you'll be able to make fewer, smaller batches for the capsule collections that are a little bit more targeted. And it's sort of similar to the previous question about cost. Do you see H&M needing to increase the costs for their capsule collections at all to balance these changes?
Since this is related to this one, I would say that we don't see much change in cost, because currently H&M, while it is considered a fast fashion brand, it is a higher quality one where the clothing is considered to be a very good quality brand, and a lot of their clothing is very popular among many different demographics. Due to the capsule clothing, it is currently H&M, as we said, with the pre-love, they are working towards sustainability practices, but it just isn't where it needs to be in order to actually improve their environmental sustainability efforts. So for that, we don't think we need to change the price, but we do think the capsule products and being able to just have that pre-order style will have a big benefit on not only the environment, but also H&M's view, like the prevention of seeing it as greenwashing, and the view that customers have of H&M.
What if we simply donated any excess production to charity, maybe through the United Nations, to places like Gaza or Ukraine? We take a tax deduction.
While that is very possible, when it comes to donating excess clothes, like I speak about in Ghana, Kenya, and Uganda, a lot of those clothes are unusable, or they're not in the condition to actually be worn and to have a second life, and they're often shipped off to these other countries where they just are left to the resources to use it. while we do see there might be a space to donate to places like Gaza and things that may need it, a lot of the waste that comes from just donating clothes does end up in landfills.
Maybe we could donate it to college students who are already paying too much for tuition.
That could also be a possible solution. However, a lot of these college students will probably end up throwing away them at the end of their college experience, therefore pushing again to the large amounts of waste being shipped off to other countries.
I was just curious. I know Shein is a really big player in the fast fashion market right now, and I was just curious to know if you looked into their practices at all, and how this will help H&M compete with a company like Shein that's, Chinese owned, and that I think they've started to incorporate some sustainability practices, but I think they're actually well far behind H&M in doing that. And I was just curious if you came across that at all.
We've seen that Shein, I haven't done a lot of research into their production and manufacturing. However, they are like very quick with it, and they have a lot of issues with different like regulations and laws, and they kind of, because they produce so much and they make so much money, that they're kind of allowed to just skate above, and they don't really address their issues that they are creating, like the overproduction and all of that. As for H&M, I feel like it's more of a established brand. People go to H&M to get the basics, to get certain things, certain items, because they know the quality might be a little bit better. So I think H&M needs to like stick to their roots of being the like better quality than Shein, because Shein is kind of like that mass overproduced fashion retailers. And so if H&M kind of shifts to the more classic, higher end, sustainable production style, I think a lot more consumers will be willing to spend at H&M rather than a place like Shein.
To go off that point, as Ali was mentioning, where H&M is going towards a more sustainable route with reducing clothes specifically, Shein is a big fast fashion player because they are trying to produce as much clothing as possible, as cheaply as possible, and that is leading to very low quality clothing. A lot of the times, people are unsatisfied with the fittings of the clothing, the different like the actual like texture and like thickness of the clothing. Whereas H&M, when we're also focusing on the long-term sustainability, we're focusing on adopting more sustainable clothing production processes and also materials. So that would allow H&M to not just be more fashionable, but also more durable in the long term, which leads to people having to buy less clothing. And a little point I wanted to add was that, as you were saying, like, are there other ways that we could go towards like reducing production of H&M rather than just going towards our AI solution? H&M did try to sell their clothing before to like different power plants as a substitute for like coal and other fuels, but many plants nowadays are hydroelectric or purely powered by water, and becomes difficult to sell those clothing to these plants because H&M's clothing at this moment uses a lot of those like mainly like plastic brands or like polyester and whatnot to create their clothing, and that can lead to microplastics in the water. And many companies and countries that they're based in are not willing to take the risk of releasing those microplastics into their water streams, which would be a viable solution. Because of the way they are producing their clothing at this moment, it is not. And that's really where we strive, and that's really what we're focusing on making it more sustainable through the production and through using more long-standing and less plastic-based materials.
Is there any role for men in these solutions? I don't see any men in the presentation. I'm the only one here. What am I supposed to do?
For the role of men, I think that actually it is a big deal, because a lot of men nowadays are also, because social media is such a prevalent thing now, a lot of men are also going towards taking strides to become more fashionable, and sometimes they're just focused on the cost, and H&M is a great opportunity to be more cost effective and cheaper. So, but not just H&M, like there's obviously Shein and there's Temu and whatnot, and that's where they're going to at this moment when they're starting off in the fashion industry or starting off getting fashion input. The difference is that H&M actually caters both towards men and women equally. We did look at that in our metrics when we were researching into H&M. Whereas if you look at Shein, it is mainly targeted towards women and they're mainly focusing on women's clothing. And so that's why a lot of the men clothing you'll see on these websites, they're more iterative, like they're more identical to each other. There's not many new trend coming out with those men's clothing, whereas H&M and with the AI that we'd be using, it's scanning all of the social media platforms to look for both men's and women's clothing and identify those trends in both of those demographics.
We have time for a few more questions.
Great. Thank you. I was wondering, what have you looked at the risk of not doing anything? What does the company look like in another 5 to 10 years? There's a change. There is fast fashion. There are different companies coming. Can we still compete?
I think in the space that we're in today, social media plays a very big role, and H&M has already been called out on these unethical practices. The dumping sites in Kenya, Uganda have been documented over years. So eventually we can say that with confidence, people may take a step back, and already H&M are facing a problem with their unsold inventory and overproduction. And now it will become a thing of people are not even demanding their products anymore holistically. So we might look into a situation where H&M incur significant losses. A huge chunk of their regular consumers will, turn to maybe Zara or a company that is said to be practicing and is playing an active role in reducing their carbon emissions within their production. So in summary, would say that H&M would definitely see a big loss in their consumer base, which would lead to even more significant financial losses, as well as their overall value as a company if they do not implement these strategies.
I have a question. I know a couple of years ago, I think we at H&M invested in hiring someone from the AI world internally to kind of build out a program internally. And I'm just curious to understand why you think it's important that we invest in an outside platform rather than building a customized in-house capacity that's specialized for our company.
While it is a great option to create an in-house production or an in-house platform that will do a similar idea, the importance is that the company that we are using is specialized in their AI integration and their AI platforms and components that they have. So it is the most cost effective because creating an in-house one would mean constant changes and also much more a higher amount in the initial investment than it is in the initial investment in using an outside platform. On top of that, because HeroTech is involved with a various number of companies, going from like smaller companies all the way to Louis Vuitton and more luxury brands, they're able to give us the insights on those companies and see what is working for those companies that can also work for us due to our similar production styles or due to our similar target demographics. And that is something that if we created in-house, we would not have the access to, or we wouldn't have that input because we're only looking at our models, whereas HeroTech is working with many different business models and many different companies, and they're able to give us input from those companies. So both financially and also logistically, it is just a better option for us to use HeroTech because again, they're the best that they're doing right now. They're always adding new components to their websites. It's cheaper for us because while our initial investment right now is I think around $500,000 a year, to create an in-house one, it would cost like a few millions at least.
That makes sense. And one other question, in terms of the environmental impact for AI, I know that AI tools use a ton of energy. And it's kind of the new frontier of a sustainability issue. How will we offset that? How will we offset that as a company in terms of the environmental impact of using AI so broadly?
So something we actually learned while looking into HeuroTech was so if you know about the current company DeepSeek, which is very similar to ChatGPT, it's just based in China. DeepSeek is actually, if you look at it, it is a more environmental friendly because of the way that they are running their platforms, where ChatGPT is based fully on carbon emissions and based fully on like using electricity to run theirs. DeepSeek is based on when they're where they are currently stationed, they're more solar based and making sure that they are focusing on changing their AI to become more environmental friendly. And HeuroTech, since it is a company based in Paris, they're using a more similar AI platform to DeepSeek than ChatGPT is at this moment, which is automatically more environmentally friendly. And since they're also focusing on environmental like sustainability with their companies, they have mentioned that they're constantly striving towards making their AI platforms more environmentally friendly to align with the companies that they're working with on their missions.
Great, thank you.
Any more questions from the judges? If not, everybody take a deep breath. Time for a little bit of feedback. Well done. I really liked your slides. Thought they were very, very compelling. They drew me into the presentation, and I was actually able to visualize what you were discussing. So, good job. Jacqueline, feedback?
Yeah, no, I think you guys did a great job, and really, I think you also handled all the questions really well. It shows that you guys did a lot of research and kind of knew more than even what was presented to us, and I think that's always really important to have that deeper level of understanding. So great job.
Yeah, I thought it was a great job as well. I will say I feel like in the beginning it started a little bit quick, and there was a lot of information to draw us in. But I think as we got into it, we definitely kind of paced ourselves, and so there's just so much background information that we had to take in the beginning. I thought the slides were great. There wasn't too much information, so it's nice to kind of read the headlines and then listen to what you have to say, which is what you're bringing in.